You've said cars are an area ripe for disruption. How important is it that Apple not miss out?
We're focusing on autonomous systems. Clearly, one purpose of autonomous systems is self-driving cars. We sort of see it as the mother of all AI projects. It's probably one of the most difficult AI projects, actually, to work on.
After 10 long years and over $10 billion invested, Apple has officially canceled their Apple Car project to focus on AI efforts instead. And while it seems like a decision they made on their own, it was actually Tesla that ultimately killed the Apple Car. So in this video, I'm gonna explain the 5 main reasons the project was canceled and how Tesla fits into the picture. Starting off with reason number 1, it's really tough to make your own car from the ground up. Just the infrastructure and manufacturing part of it alone is the most difficult part because sure, anybody can design a good car or at least a concept, but that's just the beginning. Tesla CEO Elon Musk was known to say that building a factory and mass manufacturing EVs is 100 times harder than actually designing a car concept. And we know that when Apple designs new products, they go all out on the hardware. Just look at the Vision Pro compared to the Meta Quest 3. The hardware is insane with the highest resolution ever seen in a VR headset, as well as the best build quality ever. Just the bill of materials alone is over $1,500, over 3 times more expensive than the sale price of the Quest 3, and that's just the materials alone. That doesn't account for over 15 years of research and development and over 5,000 patents, tooling, manufacturing, and labor for all of that. So if Apple was to make an Apple Car, it would likely have incredible build quality, very high efficiency, and with that, a very high price tag. So that brings us into the next reason why Apple canceled their car project, which is Apple's relentless pursuit for higher profit margins. Right now, there are basically only 2 EV companies in the world that make profit on every single car sold. BYD in China making about $1,266 per EV sold in 2023, and Tesla making $8,279 per EV sold, or around 6.5 times more than BYD. And that right there is what has allowed Tesla to drop their prices so low that nobody else can compete. So with that in mind, let's look at the profitability of some of the most popular premium EV makers in the industry right now. Let's start off by taking a look at Lucid Motors, who designed and built their own EVs, but they were extremely expensive and they lost $200,000 per vehicle sold in 2023. Yes, actually going negative with each sale, and they just dropped prices by another $7,500 this month. Rivian is probably the biggest competitor in terms of spec and quality to Tesla in the USA, and their recent earnings results showed an $83,000 loss per vehicle sold. And they also just dropped their prices again this month. Tesla is the only company in the world that has hefty profits on each vehicle sold, and it's only because they make most of their parts in-house, unlike every other car maker that relies on parts from other companies, which means that they're paying for somebody else's profits. It was reported that Apple was planning to price the car at $100,000, but the profit margins would be too slim at that price because of the high price of manufacturing and parts, which they would have to get from third parties like Foxconn and whoever else. Apple would likely have to make their Apple Car much more expensive in order to match the profit margins that their investors are used to seeing from Apple. And if they can't achieve those profit margins, it'll be seen as a negative or a plague on the company from an earnings point of view. Now, on the other hand, if they want to keep their profit margins high, they can make it incredibly expensive, like let's say $150,000. But unfortunately, that won't work because of reason number 3. Apple simply won't be able to compete with Tesla's insanely low EV prices because, believe it or not, you can get a new Model Y for $35,490 after the EV tax credit that you can now finally take at point of sale, which is an incredible deal. So how in the world is a $150,000 Apple car supposed to compete with that? No matter how premium and how high quality Apple makes it. Even at $100,000, there would have to be a massive list of advantages to go for the Apple car instead of a $35,000 Model Y. So imagine Apple releasing a $150,000 EV when you can just go buy the Model Y for $35,000. Or if you want to go all out, get the Tesla Model S Plaid for $90,000, which does 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. There's honestly no way that Apple can compete, especially because of reason number 4. And that is, of course, the high interest rate environment that we have right now compared to a couple of years ago when interest rates were at historical lows, making it easy for people to afford expensive cars. Recently, we had developments in the economy and Federal Reserve where it's finally starting to sink in that interest rates are likely to stay higher for longer, especially with inflation reports coming out recently that are pointing to inflation still running too hot. Just imagine the payment on a $150,000 Apple car thanks to these high interest rates. To give you some perspective, the average new car interest rate is now 9.95% as of last month, according to Cox Automotive. If we put that $150,000 price into an auto loan calculator for a 72-month term at 9.95%, with a $15,000 down payment, which is honestly a lot, including sales tax and other fees, you'd be looking at $2,728 a month to pay for the Apple car. And that is more money than my rent. And over the life of a 6-year loan, you would have a total cost of $211,000 paid. And even if we use Apple's original $100,000 goal for pricing, which was too low of a price to give them high enough profit margins, and with a lower $10,000 down payment, the monthly payment would be $1,833 a month. Yes, now it's starting to make sense why Apple canceled the Apple car. Wouldn't you rather just buy a Tesla Model Y for $35K instead? Because with the same loan terms and 10% down again, which is only $3,500 instead of $15,000 down, you'd be left with a much more manageable payment of $678 per month, and only $52,000 over the life of the loan. So yeah, the point is that Apple simply can't compete with Tesla. And now let's get into the final reason, number 5. Apple's vision for their car was to have a level 4 autonomy where they would basically have it be driverless with no steering wheel, but it turns out that level 4 is a lot further away than Apple thought. The tech is just not there yet. Apple was using vehicles packed with LiDAR to train for full self-driving, which we know that LiDAR is extremely expensive to equip on each and every vehicle. Elon Musk famously said that every self-driving project that relies on LiDAR will fail because it's not as good as vision and it's simply too expensive, and he's right. Just putting LiDAR on every car will dramatically increase costs so high that the only way to make a profit is to price the car even higher, and then the problem is that people just can't afford it anymore. So if LiDAR won't make any financial sense, they'll have to create their own vision-based system, which means starting from scratch, and they need thousands of hours and miles of camera data to train the AI algorithms, which would take years to get. Tesla themselves are by far the most advanced in terms of vision-based full self-driving technology, and they still don't have it ready to go. And even further, they don't have regulatory approval, which could prove to be the hardest part. Remember back in 2019 when Tesla said they would have 1 million robo-taxis on the road by the end of that year? Well, it's 2024 and we still don't even have one. And the problem for Apple is that their vision for the Apple Car was to have it work like a robo-taxi, being so advanced that you would simply use Siri and tell her where to take you and it would do it without a steering wheel being installed at all. But in 2022, they abandoned plans for a driverless vehicle and switched to level 4 autonomy, which allows the car to fully take over in circumstances like highways. But just last month, they gave up on that as well and dropped the goal down to level 2+, which is lower than what Tesla can do right now. So if that's true, who in the world would pay more for an Apple Car than a Tesla that has better self-driving capabilities? So to sum up all of those reasons, the Apple Car would just be way too expensive if they wanted to maintain their high profit margins, and in this high interest rate environment, nobody would be able to afford it anyway and would rather just choose a Tesla instead, which would force Apple to lower their prices until they basically wouldn't be profitable at all. So in an effort to please their investors, they canceled the car project completely and focused their efforts on the latest buzzword, AI. So that is how Tesla killed the $10 billion Apple Car. And if this video convinced you to buy a $35,000 Tesla Model Y, you can use my referral link down in the description below to book a test drive today and get 3 months of full self-driving for free if you end up ordering one. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can click that circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. And definitely check out one of those two right there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.